If you're a .NET developer, you know that validating a single field is pretty straightforward, right? But what happens when your validation rules depend on the entire object? Well, that's where things get a little tricky. Today, we're taking a deep dive into IValidatableObject, a super handy, built-in tool that also comes with some major gotchas you absolutely need to know about. Oh yeah, we've all been there. You're building a simple sign-up form and you just need to make sure that the password and confirm password fields match up. It seems so basic, but it perfectly shows a fundamental gap in simple validation. How on earth do you validate one field by looking at the value of another one?
See, our standard data annotations are great, but they work in isolation. They have blinders on. They only look at a single property at a time. They have no idea what's going on with the rest of your object. And that means they just can't handle rules that span multiple fields, like making sure a start date actually comes before an end date. And that is the gap we need to bridge.
So to solve this exact problem, .NET gives us a really neat built-in interface that's designed specifically for this kind of cross-field validation. Let's meet IValidatableObject.
So, what is this thing exactly? Well, it's an interface that you can implement right on your models or your DTOs, your data transfer objects. And it gives you one single method where your code can look at the entire object all at once. This lets you write custom validation logic that can compare as many properties as you need.
And when I say simple, I mean it. The interface itself is literally just one method: validate. That's it. By just implementing this one method on your class, you unlock all this powerful, custom, cross-field validation. It's surprisingly easy to get started with. Okay, so we know what it is, but to really use it right, you have to understand when it actually runs. So let's take a look at where this fits inside the whole ASP.NET Core validation pipeline. Now, this sequence is absolutely critical to understand. An HTTP request comes in, ASP.NET Core binds the data to your model, and then step 1, it checks all of your standard data annotations like required and string length. Only if all of those pass does it then move on to call the validate method from IValidatableObject. So think of it as the second, more powerful stage of validation. Now, IValidatableObject is definitely powerful, but I wasn't kidding when I called it a double-edged sword. It's really important to know not just what it's good for, but also where its hard limits are. All right, let's talk about the good stuff first. It's an absolute rock star for those classic cross-field scenarios. Is the start date before the end date? Perfect. If a user ticks the is employee checkbox, is the employee ID field actually filled out? Yep, it's got you covered. It can even handle simple business rules that are self-contained, like making sure user with the admin role is over 18. And maybe best of all, you can return a whole bunch of specific error messages pointing to exactly which fields are causing the problem. Okay, but here come the pitfalls, and listen up because these are absolute deal breakers. First, the validate method is synchronous. There's no async await. That means you can't call a database, you can't hit an external API, period. Second, it has zero support for dependency injection. You can't just ask for your services, like an iUser repository, to check if a username is already taken. This forces your validation logic to live right inside your data object, which, as you can imagine, gets really messy and hard to scale in a complex system. So, with those huge limitations, how does an architect or senior developer decide when or if to use it? Well, it all comes down to choosing the right tool for the right job and having a smart, tiered validation strategy. This table really makes the choice crystal clear. When things get more complex, a library like Fluent Validation is just hands down better. It does cross-field validation, sure, but it also fully supports async operations and dependency injection. That makes it way more powerful and scalable for pretty much any real-world app. So here's how to think about it. Think in layers. At your DTO or input model level, just use the simplest tool that gets the job done. Start with data annotations for single fields. Then, if you need simple, self-contained relationships, IValidatableObject is a great choice. But the very moment you need a database call or access to a service, that logic does not belong here. It needs to move down into your service or business layer where you have access to everything you need. So after all of that, it really just boils down to one simple golden rule. If you don't remember anything else from this, remember this next line. This is it. This is the golden rule. It perfectly balances the good and the bad. IValidatableObject is your go-to for simple checks on data you already have right there in the object. But the second you need to look outside that object, Whether it's to a database, an API, or one of your services, it's time to stop and grab a different tool from your toolbox.
And that really brings us to the final question. Now the ball is in your court. You know what it is, when to use it, and more importantly, when not to. So take a minute to think about your own code or the next feature you're about to build. Now that you know the rule, where does this powerful but very limited tool fit into your next project?